The following is a conversation with Tim Burchett, Congressman from Tennessee. Tim is one of the most honest, transparent, and authentic politicians ever to serve our country. He's pushing for transparency and disclosure of black budget government programs involving the recovery and reverse engineering of crafts of non-human origin. Tim is a courageous man who, in his own words, kicked a hornet's nest at the Pentagon on his quest for the truth. The United States and the world are extremely fortunate to have Tim serving our country. I hope you enjoy the following conversation with Congressman Tim Burchett. Yeah, Tim, I've been listening to you speak for the last year or more. I mean, you just come across as such a genuine, authentic, transparent, open, honest person, and we don't get that a lot out of politicians. So, you're very much appreciated, and I just wanted to let you know that you're doing great with this thing, man. Pushing this the question forward. I mean, not only just the UFO topic, obviously, but like, where are the dollars going? Like, the American people deserve to know where the dollars are going that the Pentagon is losing.
Half a trillion dollars in assets are unaccounted for.
Unbelievable.
And then we punish them by giving them 20 billion new dollars this past year, more than 20 billion. I'm not sure what it is, but
right.
Anyway.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's like, so if I'm getting this right, I mean, my tax dollars are going to the IRS, and then the IRS is sending them to the Pentagon, and then the Pentagon is sending them to these black budget programs that we don't know about. And then those companies it's going to the companies that are working on this technology. And then companies, allegedly, correct. Yeah. And then those companies are allegedly paying politicians to tell us that there's nothing happening here and there's nothing to see.
Yeah. I mean, since 1947,
right,
they've been telling us nothing exists, yet every alphabet agency, I guess, except the IRS, is probably investigating these things. And the interesting thing is now that there's folks like yourself, over half the population believes something. Not a day goes by that somebody I don't run into, and these are educated people, I mean,
right,
with master's degrees, doctorates, professors, lawyers. They're telling me, they tell me over half the American population believes something else exists. And the interesting thing about it is that now they see that polling numbers, and there's people like me that are putting my neck on the block, out there. And there's several others in Congress as well. I just got out on it early, I guess. But the truth is, more people are believing it, so they think there's available dollars, and they don't have to do the black projects. They can get the legitimate funding on top now, along with the black budget dollars. So it's just, and you look at things like Ukraine, we give them $114 billion, and then which it used to be liberals used to be against wars and conservatives reform. I just don't like American boys and girls dying, and I don't like wasting dollars, and I'd like to know where the hell our money's going. But
exactly.
But then when you see these liberal economists saying, "Oh, this is good for us because over half the money's coming back to America buying arms," I mean, it's like it's not real. It's not real poetic, but it's like, we're not selling enough toilet paper in this country, so they're going to put laxatives in our water. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. The whole thing is just ridiculous, and and it is a huge cover up. When I have an admiral sit in my office telling me that we are not alone, I mean, I have the best pilots in the world tell me they chased something,
right?
And
it's
I'm
not
shown
something
things
that
I can't discuss because of the nature and the oath I took. I guess that it's just a lot more is going on than we're being told.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, and I appreciate that. And I do appreciate that there is some sensitive information that you can't talk about. You mentioned 1947, obviously the Roswell crash happened early in July of 1947. The Roswell incident, I'll say, happened early in July of 1947. And then are you aware, I'm sure you know this, but then the National Security Act of 1947 was signed within 3 weeks of that incident. And And of course, the
Yeah.
National Security Act is what gives the government the ability to say, "Oh, no, that's national security. We can't talk about that." It's very coincidental that the timing of that happening, and of course, the CIA formed just a few weeks after that, and
There are no coincidences,
there
brother.
are not. No, no.
I forget
Yeah.
the quote. Steve Bannon has it in his studio about coincidences, but just the Tim Burchett paraphrase, there are no coincidences.
Right, right, exactly. Yeah, yeah. No, again, look, appreciate what you're doing and pushing this thing forward. I mean, obviously, more and more time goes on, more and more people understand that this is a legitimate phenomenon that we need to be looking into and understanding. So obviously, I think, it goes without saying the work that you're doing for the people who do understand the legitimacy of this phenomenon is some of the most important work that any politician has ever done, period. So I know
Yeah.
that's a big statement, but I believe it to be the truth, and I think that as time goes on, more and more people are going to realize that. So I do appreciate. I know that it's not without risk. You putting yourself out there and putting your neck on the line for, the truth and transparency on this topic. So just again, want to say thank you.
Thank you.
This thing with David Grusch last year coming forward to testify. I mean, can you
Right.
comment on Grusch and Fravor and
Yeah.
Graves and just
Yeah.
those guys?
I mean, they're all patriots, dude.
Yeah.
You got Grush. Ask, I guess the interesting thing was though, I've studied this issue since I was a kid, 7 or 8 years old. At the West Knoxville Library, they had the books out. And I guess now my parents would be written up by some child protective service. They just, turn me loose at the library, and I'd stay over there 3 or 4 hours and walk home or ride my bicycle or whatever. But it just, I gravitated towards it, and then TMZ, the center of all media, their cameraman Colin, he caught me out on the corner and asked me about the report that was coming out from the White House that Trump had ordered, and then it was carried over into the Biden administration. It doesn't really matter whose administration. This isn't a partisan issue.
Right.
It's just a cover up to the point of both parties are it's a uniparty anyway that runs our country. It's
Yeah.
not Republicans or Democrats,
Right.
much to the, I guess, chagrin of the party bosses. But I was asked about this report that was coming out, and it was supposed to be the one who's going to blow the lid off the UFO thing. I said, brother, that thing will, have more holes in it than a piece of Swiss cheese. And I said, more people believe in UFOs than believe in Congress. I ended up putting that on a T-shirt that I sell on my website, which sells pretty good. But
Nice.
then I became the UFO guy. I started getting calls from people all over the country, and now it's all over the world, really.
Yeah.
And I had no intention of doing that, but it's just so obvious to me
Right.
what's going on that it just is amazing to me the number of people that have had sightings. A guy called me one time that I'd worked with for years in the legislature, and I hadn't talked to him in a while. And he said, hey, I just saw you on Ancient Aliens. And I thought, here it comes. You're going to be, some joke about being probed by an alien or something. And he
Yeah.
went into telling me the story of what happened to him when he was in the Navy in the 50s, and it was not unlike a story I was told by somebody else that had happened to them in the late 70s or early 80s. No, wait, it was more recent than that. And the craft, the description, the particulars, no sound,
Mhm.
just the massivity of it, and it's just too much, Matt. I mean, it's
Yeah.
okay to call you Matt, I
Oh,
guess.
please. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, and so to me it's a compelling thing going on, and our government, as I stated, is I don't know about little green men or flying saucers. I've never seen either, but I've never seen oxygen. That doesn't mean I'm going to quit breathing, voluntary or
Right.
otherwise. I know some people wish I would, but I just think we deserve to know the truth. And
Yeah.
I'm a born again Christian. It doesn't, I'm not a good one. I'm not telling you that to try to save your soul.
Right.
That's for another time. But I'm telling you that because it doesn't hurt my beliefs. I believe, Genesis 1, God created the heavens and the heavens and the earth. And are we the best that he can do? Well, probably not, I would
Probably
say.
not. Right. Right.
And there's biblical history of this. There's other religions have, the Hindus. Everybody has some sort of thing, we've got in Ezekiel, first chapter of Ezekiel, you saw the wheel, and then you fast forward, you have Gordo Cooper, one of the best astronauts in the world. The guy never
Right.
had to tell some lie
Right.
to increase his, personality or whatever. The guy could walk in any bar in the world or any steakhouse, and I mean, everybody just, hey, let me buy you a beer, let me buy you a steak.
Yep. Yep.
I mean, why would he do that? And
Right.
why do these pilots risk their careers and their reputations selling this stuff? Because they know they're going to be humiliated. And
Absolutely. Yeah.
so,
It's easy to tell when somebody's lying and when somebody's not lying. I mean,
yeah, but
yeah.
you got to figure, are there thousands of people that have gotten together and said, "Hey, I'm going to tell this lie and I'm going to catch abuse for it"? No,
Yeah.
hell no, they're
No
not.
way. No way.
They're,
Millions of
they're
people.
I wished I could see something, but but I don't have to. I've talked to enough people, and I guess I've seen enough pictures, and I won't
Yeah.
go into that. But look, we deserve to know the truth,
Agreed.
and the people, and as I was told by a ranking member of the previous president's White House, President Trump's White House, that I have literally kicked a hornet's nest at the Pentagon, and
Yep.
that they recommended that I get bodies around me.
Okay.
And
Okay.
I take stuff like that serious. I mean, it's the reality of the world I live in, and I'm the 435th most powerful member of Congress. And I've been warned, but I'm over it.
Yeah.
Somebody's got to get this stuff out, and maybe I'm not the perfect vessel for it, but I'm the one that's, it's in my heart to get it out, and we've got to get we got to get better about this kind of stuff, brother. I mean,
Yep.
people don't trust the government for good reason. And it's
Right.
it's about arrogance. It's about control. It's about corruption and greed. And people want to call Washington, D.C. the swamp. And that sounds good. But actually, a swamp is pretty cool. It's a cool little ecosystem God created. It filters water. The wildlife that lives in a swamp is just incredible.
Yep.
Now, what we have is an open sewer. It's just something flows in and nothing flows out.
Mm-hmm.
It's and it's my job to correct that. So we're
Love
going to
that.
keep working
Yeah.
on it. And
Yeah, love that. Love that attitude and love your courage. I mean, it does take courage. This topic has been, the way that it's been treated by people has been to instill fear and to threaten people and to, make them nervous about coming forward and talking about what they know. It happened to Grusch. It sounds like it's happening to you. I mean, it's happening.
yeah, well, Grusch, I mean, he's a patriot, and
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
attack him for PTSD. My
Right.
daddy, there's a 48 star flag behind that was on my uncle's casket. He died fighting the Nazis, but my daddy fought the Japanese and he lived. He was on a little island called Peleliu, an invasion, and in the invasion of Okinawa. And then he went to China after. He was just a young man. Yeah, after the war, he went to China and fought the communists, came home, didn't get a parade, didn't get any of that stuff. Raised a little hell, married my mama, and the rest is history. Had me, my brother and sister all very late in life. But, to the day daddy died, I had to wake him up by his big toe. He had his scars weren't external, they were internal.
Mm-hmm.
It's not normal to see your buddies get shot. It's not normal to bulldoze dead Japanese soldiers,
Right.
because you got to get them off the road.
Right.
It's not normal to, you know, after people to surrender and they're in a cave and they won't surrender. They shoot back at you and you have to blow them up.
Right.
It's flamethrower. People run at you, bonsai, and you have to flamethrow them. That stuff's not normal. And he had to live with that the rest of his life, but he would have done it again. But there's Grusch suffering from PTSD. They used some little reporter, and they did. It's all set up. I knew it would happen.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody knew it would happen. That was on.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody would, that they'd get attacked,
Mm-hmm.
but they were just so blatant and stupid about it and arrogant. That shows the arrogance of them. Maybe in Washington, D.C., it's cool to run somebody down for PTSD. But brother, here in the great state of Tennessee, we love our veterans. We salute them. And if somebody had PTSD, we hug their neck. We get them help.
Yep.
And that's just the way we do things. And that's why Washington, D.C. is a freaking sewer.
Yep.
And God bless Grush. He's a buddy of mine. All those guys are buddies of mine. We talk infrequently, I guess. And but things that we can't talk about, I guess, in public. But but the truth is that Washington, D.C. is very scared of this. And, and they're doing all they can to beat me, the big boys. This upsets their little apple cart, and they're raising tons of money to run against me, and maybe they'll beat me. I don't know. But the truth is that we got them. We're over the target, and we just got to keep pounding them. That's why they're pounding us.
Yep.
They're seeing the uniparty is coming unraveled. That we know it. We were look behind the curtain, and we know what's going on.
Love it. Love it. Yeah.
And unless people like you give up, we could lose our country. And this is just a very good example of how we'll do it. They see this, and this is we've upset their little apple cart, and I'm ready to upset it a little more.
Keep upsetting it. Yeah, keep kicking that hornet's nest. Love it. Yeah, we're going to have some more hearings.
Yes, sir. The process. We can do these field hearings. Me and Luna and Moskowitz and a few others can go out, and there's a bunch of guys on there. And I'm sorry, I'm not saying all their names, but and they're good folks, man. Both parties. Some of my Republican colleagues are some of the best people in the world. And they're conservative and God-fearing people, and not flashy, but just want to get to the bottom of this thing.
Yep.
And so we do a field hearing. It's just we can do whatever we want. We can go to Area 51 or something, possibly. But Area 51, everybody wants to go there. But it's kind of like, as soon as we announce something, don't you think the U-Haul vans are going to be there moving whatever? I mean, Area 51, it's if you want to go to the little ALN, the bar over there or something, or get your picture made in front of one of those signs that says, we can kill you. It's basically they can kill you. You can use deadly force to stop you from entering. And it's a Department of Energy kind of deal, and it's screwy. But I don't think there's much there, if there is anything there. I believe they're working on stuff there. I believe you got places maybe Wright-Patterson, but the real deal is they're at these corporations. And I'm sorry I'm talking too much. I've had too much coffee today.
Oh, you're great. Yeah.
But the way it works is under FOIA, Freedom of Information Act. I can request something at a government entity. You can request it, and they generally have to respond. But since they passed it off to these private contractors that are getting these $500 billion somehow, it's a question of whether we can pierce the veil of that corporation, if that makes sense to you.
It does, yeah.
And so that's how they do it. That's how they compartmentalize it. People are working on stuff they don't have any idea. I'm a motorcycle guy. I always give the idea thing. If I took a brand new Harley or a brand new Indian and sent it back to the folks on the Mayflower, it'd just be a bright, shiny object. They might get it started eventually, but they ain't gonna work on the fuel injection. They won't have the technology even to make the gasoline for it or pump the tires up or whatever. And and that's sort of what they've got with this stuff, if they have it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like the people that were working on the atomic bomb, 2,000 people working on it. And what, 5 people, 10 people knew actually.
Yeah. That's my story. I always talk about Oak Ridge National Laboratory is right over here. It's not in my district, but over 6,000 people work over there and live in my district, or the district I represent, not my district. You know what I mean? I don't want to sound cocky, but I know I was knocking on doors. People like me don't get elected to office very often. I don't come from money, and I'm just, I got lucky in life and married a wonderful woman and adopted her little girl. And I have a wonderful, wonderful life. I've been just lucky, God's grace. But I remembered I was knocking on doors one time, and this guy was putting his flag out. And I said, "Are you a veteran?" And he kind of looked off. No, I didn't serve. He said, I was actually working at Oak Ridge on the bomb. And I said, "Brother," I said, "if my mom and daddy were here, they would hug your neck, because my daddy was on Okinawa when they dropped that bomb, and they thought they were in their 1st Marine Division was going to spearhead the assault into Tokyo Bay, and they dropped those bombs, and and the war
was over.
Long story short, war was over."
Right.
And I said, he said, funny thing is, I didn't know what I was working on, maybe a fuse. He said my wife was working on some sort of electrical mechanism. Said, and we didn't know what either of us were doing, because national security, compartmentalization. excuse me. And I always remember that story because I heard it time and time again. And you're right. It was 5 or 6 people, maybe in the whole complex, knew that they were working on an atomic bomb. That's
Right.
all they knew.
Right.
But now that's how they do it now. But they separate it in corporations. And again, the people that were alive, nobody's alive that was around Roswell in 47. And there's been other, I've been told, other incidences where they've recovered things, and it's been pretty well documented.
Yeah.
Had a flyover over one of our nuclear facilities, and it shut down, and it was documented. The people who are allegedly overseeing that were asked that about overseeing that, this new UFO group or whatever. They had never heard of it, and I don't think they could spell UFO, much less know what's going on. I mean, they were clueless, but they were clueless by design. They're not told, and it's just what they know. And currently, we have a few people out there that are telling, and it always drives everybody crazy. Everybody tries to guess who it is, and I'm not going to tell you who it is.
Yeah.
But you have people out there that are putting out falsehoods. But the trouble is, they think it's real. They've been shown things that are not true,
Right.
and to their knowledge, and they maybe worked on it all their life, some of them. And then they put them out into the public, knowing that they're going to leak it. They knew the psychology of these people, and brother, and you got a lot of that out there, and that sends everybody down a rabbit hole. They talk to me thinking I'm going to blab or show their pictures or do whatever, and then just to embarrass the cause and to drive away public. And this is another one of those deals, kind of thing. So I always tell people be very cautious. I get every day. I can always tell when I've been on a big TV show or one of these nice podcasts, because I'll get a bunch of books and a bunch of pictures and a bunch of stories, and I try to peruse them. I had a major national figure come see me. Like I said, it all runs together. It was last week about this issue, and and we talked about it, and they're what they thought it was, and and I just have to be real careful, and that's why I say I'm not really worried about little green men or flying saucers. I just want transparency. I want total disclosure. I want to know what we're spending that money.
Right. Right. Yeah. We deserve to know that. I mean, the American people deserve to know that. The world deserves to know that. Like, what is reality? What is the base reality? It's not about skeptic or belief. I mean, you look at that spectrum, and there people are either on one side or the other. They're skeptic or they're believers. But the people on the believer side are typically they don't have to believe. They've either experienced something or they've done enough research to recognize, hey, that there is something here that we need to be looking into. And so, no, I appreciate what you're doing and getting all that information out there. If I can just ask you one or two more questions.
Sure, brother. Go ahead.
All right, fantastic. Yeah, I was I know that you had that SCIF, and you probably can't say much of anything about that, but I know that you had very low expectations in terms of what you might get out of it. Did you come out of it feeling any, how did you feel coming out of it, I guess is my question.
They didn't tell me anything I didn't already know. I hate being cocky about it, but I know enough about it, and I know enough about human nature. Again, people like me don't get into Congress very often. And in the church, they talk about your gifts. People have gifts of, they can sing, they can do whatever. My gift, I think, is a gift of perception. And when somebody walks in the room, I can pretty much figure them out for some reason within about 15 seconds.
Yeah.
And it, hang on one second. Man, it's DC.
Well, people like me don't usually get promoted to CEO either, so I feel you, man. I'm right there with
you. But back to the SCIF thing, and I'll try to concentrate my thoughts here because I get off. But what was your question again? I'm sorry,
just what were your feelings coming out?
Oh, yeah. Well, my positive about it was that we had 16 or 17 people in there, and they were Democrats and Republicans. People you would know their names, and we had some pretty high-ranking folks walk in, had heard about it, and had confided in me that they, as either in their military or their youth, or maybe as an adult, I won't specify, that they had seen something, and it was undescribed. I mean, they could describe it, but it wasn't anything that was in our arsenal or the Russians or the Chinese or anything else. Mm-hmm. And it was not unlike a lot of the other stories I'd heard.
Yeah.
And it was in an area that was, I'll just say that has been pretty common for sightings.
Yeah.
Um, and, a lot of this is over water, which
Right.
is, and there's people that say, Mariana's Trench, what is it, 2 miles deep or something, if you can even fathom that.
Yeah.
No pun intended.
Yeah.
But the good old boys say phantom that. But and I've talked to people that there's just that came from this after the SCIF meeting that had heard something that was said and talked about what they thought was said, and that's the trouble with the SCIF. It's a trap, partially.
Mm-hmm.
They'll tell you information, maybe even you already know that.
Mm-hmm.
And I pretty much knew everything that was going to be said. I knew the questions that were going to be asked. And again, not being cocky, I just know the issue.
Sure.
And I know what people are saying out in the public. They've been saying it to me for years, and now they're getting an earful, and now they're like, "Whoa, what is this stuff?"
Right.
And so, and the best thing that happened to me was the lack of information that flowed from the federal government to Congress.
Mm-hmm.
That ticks people off, and they smell a rat, regardless.
Mm-hmm.
And that, Democrat and Republican walked out in unity about that issue.
Right.
There's a couple of things that were brought up in there that were pretty, if it would be on the front page of the paper, it'd be a blockbuster.
Yeah.
But things that I suspected, but finally had somebody say. And I think the positive is that according to those folks, Grusch was telling the truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I mean, he's going to jail for perjury for years and years and years if he's lying. I mean, he just has no reason to lie. So you're saying that they will tell you stuff in the SCIF and stuff that you already know, and then you have the if you repeat what you already know and what they told you, then you could get in trouble for saying what they told you in the SCIF.
100%.
That's
and people get mad at me because I don't go to secret briefings on what's going on in Ukraine or in Israel or something, because I don't want to know. I already know what's going on. I got enough people that whisper in my ear that are over there or have been there or in the Pentagon or what have you, that we're in the Pentagon maybe, and they can sort of give me the kind of the background on all this. Nothing, not espionage or anything like that, but it's human nature. Right. And a lot of this is, and you can figure it out. But the best thing that came out of that was the number of Democrats and Republicans in there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Nice. Well, hey man, I really appreciate your time. I can't thank you enough for coming on the podcast and having a chat with me. And I don't want to take up too much of your time, but would love to chat with you again at some point in the future, as things progress. And I just want to again thank you and just really encourage you to keep going with this and to keep pushing this forward, and let's find the truth. Let's get to the bottom of this thing and really figure out where are these dollars going and really what's going on? What do we know? Because the American people deserve to know. So I appreciate your time. I appreciate your efforts, and keep it up, man. You're doing a great job.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, brother. Just keep putting the truth out there.
Yes, sir. That's what we're working on here at Limitless. I appreciate it, man.
Right on.
All right. See you, Tim.
Brother.
Yep.
Thanks, brother.